The film I've decided to analyze for this assignment is Fritz Lang's Metropolis from 1927. Metropolis was an important film for many different reasons. It was probably the world's first science fiction blockbuster. It foresaw some current technology decades before it was invented or in general use. It inspired modern filmmakers like George Lucas to create their own sci-fi stories, and it had some interesting gender dynamics as well. The development of feminist film theory was influenced by second-wave feminism and women's studies in the 1960s and 70s, initially in the United States. Feminism film theory was generally based on sociological theory and focused on the function of female characters in film narratives and genres. So how does the feminism film theory apply to Metropolis? Well, for starters, it was co-written by author Thea von Harbu, who was Fritz Lang's wife. She also released a novelization while the film was still in production. Her novel was published in 1925, and the film was released in 1927. In the film, we are introduced early on to a young man named Frieder, the son of the mayor of the city of Metropolis. We're also introduced to the caste system present in this future world. The elites who live in the bustling, futuristic city above, with all its skyscrapers and technology, and the poor workers who toil for long hours running the city's machines underground and never see the sun. Frieder seems a typical playboy type when we're introduced to him, frolicking with various young ladies in one of the city's gardens, until he sees Maria. Maria is from the Undercity. She brings some poor children to the surface to show them their brothers and sisters who live in such different lives in the world above ground. Frieder sees her and immediately falls in love at first sight, following after to try and find her once she's expelled by the garden's employees, as her kind aren't supposed to be there. Now, this all seems fairly standard for a 1920s production. Cute girl, man falls in love with her, rescues her from danger, and so on. That's not the way this plays out, and Maria is no wallflower. She's been advising the workers in the Undercity, who have grown impatient and rebellious, considering their poor treatment by the elites. She's an important figure in the workers' community, but she's a peacemaker as well, advising the militants to not resort to violence. Now, whereas there are several important male figures in Metropolis, there are only two major female figures in the movie, and Maria is one of them. The other is one of the most iconic robots in all of film history, the Maschinenmensch, German for machine human. She's also been known erroneously as Hell, Robot Maria, and in the novel Futura, the film credits her as just the Robot. The robot was created by mad scientist Rotwang and ends up being deployed by the mayor of the city to impersonate Maria and disrupt any plans the workers have to rebel. After Maria is kidnapped and her form is copied onto the robot, fake Maria goes out on her mission. But probably because of the crazy Rotwang's programming, she ends up doing nothing but causing trouble for everyone. Far from stopping the workers from revolting, she encourages them, then returns to the Overcity and causes a scene in a major club called Yoshiwara's, driving all the men mad with lust. These two female characters, both played by actress Brigitte Helm, are opposites, one a peacemaker, the other a riot causer. It takes both Frieder and Maria to clean up the mess caused by the robot and bring peace back to the city at the end of the film. Sure, there are some of the standard gender tropes of the era present, and Frieder does have to end up rescuing Maria from the clutches of Rotwang before the finale. But the script's portrayal of Maria as both a leader of her people and peaceful agent for social change is very interesting for a film of that period. And the robot and her machinations are fascinating as well. The Maschinenmensch becomes what would be known later as the femme fatale type, typified in so many film noir pictures years later. The fact that the two main female characters are so interesting is probably down to Thea von Harbu's scriptwriting. She makes them as important to the story as our male lead Frieder is, which is great. Brigitte Helms does a fantastic job with both roles, being sweet, wise, and easygoing as Maria, creepy as the robot version of the Maschinenmensch, and apparently uncomfortable as well from what I've read about the costume. Then a crazy femme fatale when she's the robot impersonating Maria. Considering the broad acting style of the period, she gives a fairly nuanced performance, all things considered. The formal elements of the film Metropolis are very effective. The sets are amazing, the model work is excellent for the period, and the visual effects are stunning for the time as well. Fritz Lang's direction is spot on also. All of this enhances the film's theme of social inequity taken to the extreme. Sadly, it's not a completely far-fetched idea, especially in an era where the gap between the rich and the poor is just getting wider, at least here in the United States. The whole film is an interesting mix of social commentary and future speculation of technology. We're shown a video phone, a high-tech robot, and even a possible future of prosthetic limbs, as Rotwang appears to have a robotic hand that perhaps he created while designing the robot. There are elevated trains and lots of air traffic in the city, although this was before helicopters were invented, so small planes are shown flying around the skyscrapers. But Lang did predict modern city air traffic correctly, so you have to give him that. Metropolis was made in Germany, of course, and premiered in 1927, 10 years after the First World War. There are definitely elements of German expressionism present in the film, and its tale of societal inequity could be a reaction to the excesses of the 1920s. The 1920s in Germany are often referred to as the Golden Twenties. It really describes a 5-year period which began in 1924, after the hyperinflation related to the war subsided, and ended with the Wall Street crash of 1929. During this era, Germany experienced economic recovery, artistic innovation, and social change. It was a time of jazz, cabaret, and avant-garde movements, as well as advancements in science and technology. The 1920s in Germany were a complex mix of political upheaval, economic challenges, and vibrant cultural trends. A pivotal decade that shaped the nation's trajectory leading up to the volatile years of the 1930s. Another interesting factor to address is that the film is set in the future world of 2026. We're only 2 years away from that future that Metropolis depicted now in 2024. I always find it fascinating when we reach a year a sci-fi movie looked at as the far future, like Back to the Future 2 and the year 2015, which is now in our past. And we still don't have the darn flying cars that film prophesies. Oh well. At least we are pretty close to the Metropolis future. Video phones, check. Advanced robots, check. Okay, not as advanced as the Metropolis robot, but we're getting there. Advanced prosthetic limbs, check too. Huge social divide between rich and poor. Yeah, sadly, we're getting there too.